Chandler Smith from AggieAthletics.com. So, Chandler, thanks for being with us this afternoon, and tell us a little bit about what you do for AggieAthletics.com.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm a feature writer columnist for AggieAthletics.com, which is the official athletic site for A&M Athletics. So I guess needless to say, a little preface that this is my independent take, separate from anything that's officially said by the athletic department. But it is within the athletic department, 12-man production. It's a relatively new gig, so it's been pretty fun thus far. But they're just trying to add some more color content, so they've brought me on along with some others to write some features and add some colorful content to their otherwise very, very solid site.
Right. Well, talk a little bit about, obviously, Texas A&M is going to play Duke in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. It's one of the better matchups, I think, obviously with the ACC, with Duke getting in there, and then Texas A&M from the SEC. Talk about that matchup a little bit, and the kind of year, the 8-4 year that the Aggies had.
Yeah, it's an intriguing matchup, and first and foremost, you have to admire what David Cutcliffe has done. And with that Duke program and getting them 10 wins and doing what Duke, getting them to a place where they haven't been in a very, very long time, and what is arguably their greatest season ever. That said, I do think that A&M comes in here with a distinct advantage in athleticism, a distinct advantage in talent. There is a bit of a disparity, and so it'll be interesting to see which Texas A&M team shows up, and I am certain that Duke will be as excited as they can be for this game, coming in with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, but also coming off the excitement of having a season like they've had. So there are a few intriguing matchups. I want to see Johnny Manziel after he's gotten healthier since the season, having the broken thumb on his throwing hand, which really came to light against the athletic teams like at the end of the season, like LSU and Missouri. To give him a month of rest before this bowl game to see how he performs against a team that, like I said, won 10 games in what, at least at the beginning of the season, seemed to be a rising ACC conference, a deeper ACC conference on the national stage. So to see that, and then Mike Evans, who failed to get to the Blitnikoff, but thanks in part to his I wouldn't say lackluster performance, but kind of a diminished performance against LSU and Missouri, two more athletic defensive teams. But can Duke, can Jeremy Cash, their safety, can they do some things in coverage to limit Mike Evans' impact, to force A&M to run the ball a bit more, and to control the line of scrimmage on that side of the ball, which will be key. Something LSU and Missouri were able to do that I'm not convinced that Duke will be able to do. But I think it's intriguing. It's on New Year's Eve. It'll be the only game then. So we'll have there'll be quite a bit of exposure, so it should be fun.
Right. Well, obviously, one of the biggest hype games in the offseason was Texas A&M Alabama. It was a great game. Obviously, Texas A&M fell a little short. Talk about how hard it was. When you get up for a game like that, it's got to be hard. If you lose, to kind of regroup emotionally. But they went on a little win streak and struggled at the end versus LSU and Missouri, which I was surprised at the way they played versus LSU, and I really thought they were going to beat Missouri. But just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. A&M came in with quite a bit of expectation, and I think it was warranted given the success that they had the year before, to the point where the Aggies and because nationally there were a lot of pundits were pinning A&M as a potential national title contender. So it made that A&M Alabama game a must-see game of the year kind of scenario, which it was. It lived up to the billing. Of course, A&M came up on the short end of that. But I really think that everything changed a bit for them, the season, just momentum in general, when Auburn came in and won at Kyle Field. You had Johnny leave for a small bit, and then the defense's up and down performance and waning there in the fourth quarter, with Auburn resurging and really taking control of the game at the latter end of the fourth quarter, with Johnny doing everything he could, but not coming up with the final play he needed to win that game. And ever since then, it just seemed to be a little bit of a different feel to the whole team and how everything has been progressing. But you have to be happy that a potential 9-win season is currently a disappointment, when 5 years ago for this program that would have been one of the best things ever. Did fantastic for them. So credit Sumlin and Menzel and the whole program for rising that level of expectation to where they are in the national spotlight, and they do expect to be in the talk for an SEC championship and for national championships. But it's a bit disappointing for Aggie fans to see the team fall to the record that they did, but there's a lot of reason for optimism.
Well, yeah, the SEC West was pretty strong this year, so, I mean, you throw a couple of injuries in there, and it's very easy to do. Well, obviously, Johnny Manziel, the 2012 Heisman winner, he's had an incredible career. Some people I don't see how you don't like the guy. I mean, he's just a competitor, a player. I mean, I want him on my team. I think, the Bama fans, people in general don't like, maybe they don't like his attitude, but, I think he's a great player. Just talk about, if you can sum up the career he's had there, what he's meant to Texas A&M, and just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, first of all, I think you can't talk about Manziel without first recognizing the transcendent aura about him as being one of the best football players to ever play in college football, one of the most exciting players to ever play college football. And the impact he's had at A&M has been profound, but it should be seen within the context of A&M's move to the SEC, on top of the hiring of Kevin Sumlin, Manziel in the system, plus being in the SEC, which brought it to a completely different level, which which thrusted A&M into the national spotlight. What was a solid regional brand all of a sudden became a very prominent national brand, with Manziel being at the forefront, as being a catalyst to bring A&M to a competitive level in the SEC and bring them to that national spotlight. But another thing about it is he made it possible for A&M to get competitive immediately, but the way I see it anyways, is that it's more of a bridge period between what A&M was and what A&M can be potentially moving forward in the SEC West as a perennial powerhouse along the likes of LSU, Alabama, Auburn now. They have the infrastructure, facilities, the money. They've dropped $450 million on a stadium to be completed in 2015. They just finalized a contract with Kevin Sumlin to keep him for the long term. And it'll be interesting to see how the Manziel impact, as far as creating that exposure, affects recruiting and really builds this program going forward. Because you saw, even though you had all the excitement from last year and you had Manziel returning, that this isn't the destination point for this Texas A&M program in terms of the amount of talent it can accumulate over time to be the kind of program it wants to be in the SEC. So I really see Manziel as more of a catalyst to get A&M where it needs to be, rather than a destination point for the program.
Right, and well, obviously, Johnny's in the. He got invited to New York, obviously, the defending Heisman winner. It looked like for a while with the numbers he was putting up at the beginning of the season that he may tie Archie Griffith with winning 2 Heismans in a row. It's looking a little more slim now. What do you think about that? I mean, what do you give his chances for winning the Heisman tomorrow? And, is he going pro, I guess? It's
going to be tough. The general consensus as far as the NFL goes is that the Duke game will be his final game, will be the final game of his college career. Now, of course, that's not certain. There hasn't been any official announcement on the subject. But that's the thought around it. And who knows what the injury means. Obviously not playing 100%, and possibly not even 75% in his last 2 games against top competition. Had he won those 2 games, or even won, this would be a much more interesting conversation. But as it is, given the results of those games and the way Johnny played, which were under his standards and under the standards, the expectations that the Heisman voters have set for him, it's hard to argue Manziel as the worthy, I guess, of the second consecutive Heisman Trophy. Although I think it's also hard to argue that he wasn't one of the best college football players of this season. My gut reaction now is Jameis Winston. It's just what happened. It's just the way the year went after Auburn. Some of the injuries, the fact that the overall team wasn't as good. The program is still catching up, and Manziel's feeling the effects of that. But I think if you're an A&M fan, if you're an Aggie, that you have to kind of sit back and realize, hey, he did win a Heisman Trophy, but also what he's meant to the program, and be optimistic, even with Manziel gone, at where the program is headed as far as the talent level goes.
Right, because Texas A&M was pretty young this year, and all the pundits, I know this was a couple of years ago, that talked about, they wouldn't adjust, but they were proven pretty wrong by that. Talk about, Kevin Sumlin and the job he's done there, and what where was he at before? Just give us a little background on Coach Sumlin out there in College Station.
Well, Coach Sumlin, he worked with Mike Price at Washington State. He's a Purdue alum. He worked there briefly. The thing about Sumlin, he's been with some of the best quarterbacks in the game. When he was at Purdue, he worked very closely with Drew Brees. He went to Oklahoma. He was with Bob Stoops' staff after Brees stayed at A&M under R.C. Slocum, so he was able to work with Sam Bradford there. He worked with Case Keenum at Houston, and then, of course, Johnny Manziel at A&M. So if there's a head coach that knows anything about quarterbacking and offense, it's Kevin Sumlin. And certainly he's in that tree, the Dana Holgorsen tree of Mike Leach. Some of the Gus Malzahn, it's a variation of that sort of spread system that's been very successful for him and has been successful for him since he became a head coach at the University of Houston and since at A&M. But it's just his personality, his charisma. He changed the face of recruiting at A&M and how recruits perceive A&M now in the state of Texas, which is huge given the amount of talent that could be tapped into in that state. Really no excuse for A&M to be at the level they were for as long as they were. And Kevin Sumlin's turned that around to where now, even with the nine-win season, now in the SEC, they're able to recruit top 5 recruiting classes. And as long as Kevin Sumlin's there, I don't see why that wouldn't continue. So to be able to change the perception within the state of Texas and to bring the amount of talent they had at A&M to its full potential or close to it, I can't say enough about the job that Kevin Sumlin's done.
Right, and once again, we're talking to Chandler Smith of AggieAthletics.com on WSBF-FM Clemson. Were you surprised that A.J. McCarron won the Maxwell Award, over some of those guys? I have to admit I was a little bit.
The way I look at McCarron is more
lifetime achievement.
Right, exactly. It's one of those things, just,
Because, I'm thinking in that A&M Alabama game, if A&M can, if they get 1 or 2 more stops, Manziel literally, he took him out of the fire there, so.
But there have been moments where McCarron sparked, and they needed a play for him. They needed a moment from him to win the game. Did he have a lot of help from his teammates? Is he surrounded by extraordinarily talent? Is he coached by Nick Saban? Yes, all those things are true. But just thinking to the national championship against LSU, the rematch, the game of the century part 2, where, of course, Alabama wouldn't let him pass the 50, but it was McCarron's, it was really his rise to prominence there. And to beat LSU last year with the pass to Yeldon, but to drive him downfield after LSU went to full prevent defense, they needed some plays from him to win that game.
Yeah. Under
the toughest circumstances possible with all the pressure on him. So there have been moments where, is he the greatest quarterback that's playing college football right now? And has he been? I would argue no. But I'm not terribly disappointed with that decision, and I can understand where the voters were coming from, even though I think that kind of thinking is a bit flawed.
Right, I would definitely agree with that. Well, talk about the arch rival over there in Austin, Texas. How is this? What is this Mac Brown situation? I mean, is it affecting A&M at all? Maybe getting some recruits from Texas who are uncertain. I mean, I really think that Saban. I don't see how anybody could say he wouldn't go out there because when he was at the Dolphins, he said he wasn't going to leave. He went to Alabama. I mean, if Texas came along and offered him $10 million or whatever, it'd be hard to turn that down.
There's so many factors involved, and of course, Mac Brown, the Texas program, isn't what it had been in the past. Still able to recruit at a fairly high level because of the name of the program and the brand and the fact it's Mac Brown's specialty, so to speak. They call him the best coach of February for a reason, but it'll be interesting to see once Saban decides, and considering his age, how much longer he's going to be coaching. For A&M, it's kind of a matter of would you rather play him or would you rather recruit against him exclusively. They're still recruiting against him while he's at Alabama, but there's certainly pros and cons to that, and there's too much talent in the state of Texas for A&M not to get a fair share, even with a coach like Nick Saban at Texas. And we can't forget that Texas is still recruiting well, despite their lack of success on the field. Are they losing more battles to A&M than they ever have been? Yes, but that's more of a testament to A&M's success and Kevin Sumlin than it is to Texas's recent inability to really find success on the field. And the fact that A&M rising and Texas continuing to recruit fairly well have cut out a lot of other programs that would have otherwise been recruiting well in the state of Texas over recent years. Teams like Oklahoma, teams like Arkansas, and even LSU to a certain extent aren't finding ways to get talent in Texas as they used to. And A&M's meteoric rise has been a big part of that. So am I terribly worried about it? From A&M's perspective, not too much.
Right. And with being in the SEC now. And before we let you get out of here,
right.
Once again, we're talking to Chandler Smith from AggieAthletics.com. Just talk about, over the last couple of years, I've gotten to see Johnny a couple of times, live in person, Just talk about being able to watch him over the past couple of years and what it's been like because, I think he's a great player. He's been great for college football just nationally and, some of the people that would never look at college football pro-wise, things like ESPN, just all over Manziel. Just talk about what's that been like, being able to watch him, make things happen for 2 years.
It's been one of the biggest privileges I've had, just considering I was just starting a journalism career fairly recently, and for that to be the moment that I really, able to get some experience with it and see Johnny Manziel live and see the rise of the program has done a bit of a surreal experience. And to see him live, if you do ever get the chance, whether it's now in college, if you are going to Atlanta, which might be his last shot, or in the pros if he does get that chance, he's one of the most exciting players that I've ever seen. He's certainly the best player live I've ever seen when he's at 100%. I don't think anybody can touch him. I honestly I don't think even now that I would have any other quarterback
right
on my team. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, he's definitely been unbelievable to watch over the past years. And, well, we really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Once again, Chandler Smith from AggieAthletics.com. And good luck to your Aggies in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. We'll be watching on New Year's Eve. It should be a great game between the Blue Devils and the Aggies. But have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thanks again.
Thank you, you too, and good luck with that Orange Bowl.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Chandler.